Hey there, listeners! Welcome
Hola!
to Rhapsody and Reverie, episode 6.
Hold on, we gotta do that over.
Why?
Because I said hola at the same time you said welcome.
I can fix that. Yeah, welcome to Rhapsody and Reverie, episode 6. We got a great show for you today.
We do indeed. Who are we talking about today?
Well, why don't you remind us, our listeners, of our hint for this week?
Yes, there were 2 hints. I did make 2 hints because one of them was too hard. The first hint being that one of their songs was inspired by the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and the second hint being one of their songs was inspired by the TV show Twin Peaks. And the answer to both of those hints is the band Bastille.
Yay!
Woo!
Wasn't that exciting, kids?
And if any of you are curious as to which songs those were, Rime of the Ancient Mariner was The Weight of Living Part 1, and Twin Peaks was Laura Palmer. Bastille is a fascinating band.
I'm gonna assume that you know who Bastille is, listeners.
I'd hope
and if
so.
you don't, you have Google.
Did you miss the entire, 2012, 2013 era?
Did you miss Pompeii? Pompeii?
Pompeii played every single day on the top 40. Every single day.
Every single hour.
And, I wasn't mad about it.
Me neither.
But at the same time, if you slept on that, there's no hope for you. There's just no hope.
No hope. Turn back now.
I want to give a shout out to their cover of Basket Case that they did for The Tick. Because when I first heard they covered Basket Case, I started laughing for some reason. I don't know why the thought of Bastille covering...
Yeah, the juxtaposition of Bastille and Green Day.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like it would work.
No, but you know what? I liked their cover more than I liked the original.
High praise.
Well, I'm not admittedly this giant Green Day fan. I like Green Day, but this is partly why I love Bastille, because they took this great grungy song. I know I'm gonna get attacked by the super diehard Green Day fans for calling it grungy, but they took this rock song, this really gritty rock song that is great. I love Basket Case, and they turned it into this orchestrated number with these soaring vocals. And I'm sorry, a string quartet works so well with this song. So I mean, whatever, Green Day, you can come for me. You can leave me alone.
It's fine.
I thought it was a good cover.
Okay, so let's travel back in time
all the way back.
Talk about before we get into the albums, let's talk about just how Bastille entered our lives. When did you first really fall in love with Bastille?
Oh, when I heard Pompeii on the radio.
So it was a love at first sight kind of experience for you, or love at first listen?
It was at least love at first. How do I want to phrase this? I fell in love with the song at first listen, not necessarily the band, but that first impression was a very good one. Because that came out 2012, the song? I don't know. I thought they had a very unique sound. it was what, our freshman year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something very intriguing about the whole overall sound, like with the chanting at the beginning. I know Dan Smith talked about how he really liked the chanting element of the song. I thought they were going like making random sounds with their mouth, like going oh, like something like that. Apparently, they're not saying that. They're saying "ayo" with EHEU, which is Latin for alas. So they're basically screaming, "Oh, oh no, oh no, oh, oh no, oh no."
Which
That's great.
Which
That's
it's very on brand.
right, and like the because either this is like
Pompeii.
Right, and here's the deal: I loved a little morbid fact about me. I had this book as a kid about Pompeii, and it was like one of those like history books for kids where like they don't get into too graphic detail, but at the same time it's like this little 5-year-old kid reading about the destruction of a Roman city via volcano and lava and smoke and hot ash. And for some weird reason, I was fascinated with Pompeii as a concept when I was a little kid.
Just another bedtime story.
Right! It had pictures and everything, and I was like, oh, this dog died. It's so sad. But no, so it was weird because this song sort of reignited this like fascination with antiquity or this one event that happened in antiquity that I had when I was a little kid. And it's just a very well written song overall. Like if you're gonna take it literally, I took it literally. It's this person in the last few minutes of Pompeii, dealing with it. I guess 2 corpses, reminiscing about their last moments as their city burned around them, which is it's a weirdly upbeat song for something so sad.
Yeah, it's oddly like inspiring, that song. And I had an interesting moment literally on Tuesday with that song. I was in a lift on my way to work, and I was in a kind of not great mood. And I was feeling very like buried under like a lot of just different responsibilities that I had in my head and stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, like, how am I gonna deal with all this stuff? And then Pompeii came on the radio. And I was just like, yeah.
So were you buried under life like those corpses were buried under hundreds of feet of ash?
Yeah.
And lava.
And I literally, it gets to the chorus. He's like, how am I gonna be an optimist about this? And I was just like, yeah.
I love that line.
Great
I love
question.
that line. I love the imagery that it's portraying here. This little curled up corpse.
It's weirdly funny.
How am I gonna be
funny?
How am I gonna be an optimist about this, Diane? How?
Yeah, you just picture like 2 people, and one person's like, well, I guess it's not so bad. Just like, how am I gonna be an optimist about this? We're dead.
But this is part of why I fell in love with Bastille as a band in general, because they're really good at telling a story.
Yeah.
And they're over the top, they're theatrical, they have an amazing sound, but it's their ability to convey a story that really got me hooked on them. How did you fall for them as a band?
So, this is actually rather interesting because I actually did not fall in love with Bastille until we saw them live.
Oh, that was only last year.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I always liked Bastille. Like,
Mhm.
really liked Bastille. I always found everything they did intriguing, and I listened to it a lot. Um, and when I first heard their record Bad Blood, I liked it. I thought it was a lot of really great, inventive, interesting music, but there was always this sort of like emotional connection that was kind of like not quite there for me. Like
Yeah.
I really really liked them, but in terms of like there's something holding me back from like having the connection that I have to artists like the 1975 and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And I was always rather interested as to why that was. I couldn't quite figure it out. But then we saw them live, and um I think I think context is necessary here.
Okay.
So when we saw Bastille live, it was a spring day in Philadelphia, which
Mhm.
is a hit or miss in terms of weather. But this particular spring day was cold.
It was
Very,
cold.
very, very cold.
It was
And
wet.
it, it was very wet. It had been raining throughout the day. It was cold and wet, and we were at an outdoor venue with lawn seats.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and it was an all day event. So we had been there from like 3
12.
o'clock.
I thought
Yeah,
we went
like,
there at 12.
I don't know. It was like
Okay.
somewhere between 12 and 3 we got there. So, and we stayed for most of it, and Bastille was like the second to last act on.
Yeah, I forgot who closed.
I think it was Kings of Leon that closed.
Yeah. We did not
Um,
stay. Our
we did not
apologies to
stay.
our apologies to Kings of Leon. We were dying.
Yes, I was actually going to die.
Yeah.
And so Bastille was the last act we saw that night. But as we were waiting for Bastille to start, I was standing there and I was like, this is miserable. I want to go home. There was a part of me that wanted to turn to you and be like, we have to go home now. But I knew that we couldn't do that because it was Bastille and you love Bastille and I've always wanted to see them live because I've
Mhm.
always been interested to see what that would be like. But so much of me wanted to just forget everything
I felt
and
so
go
bad.
home.
I felt terrible. Like that's why right before Bastille we hid in like the lobby to try and warm
Yeah.
up. And like we missed a band. We missed Empire of the Sun and we were trying to just get warm so that we'd be ready. Hoping that they would pump us up enough so that we'd forget for at least a 20-minute set that we were freezing and muddy and
Yeah,
wet.
because we were standing in the mud.
In the
So,
rain.
in the rain and the mud, and so I'm standing there and I'm waiting for them, waiting for Bastille to get on stage. I'm waiting for something to happen,
Mhm.
and like every part of my body was tired and cold, and I literally my expectation leading into the set was like I'm just gonna stand here and wait for it to be over, and then I'm gonna go home.
Yep.
But then the show started, and they started with Send Them off of
Mm.
their Wild World album.
Mhm.
And when that song starts, it starts with this loud, blaring horn section, and then the drums kick in, and the bass comes in, and then
Oh yeah.
Dan Smith comes in, and when that happened, I went from being dead tired to grabbing energy from the deep, deep bowels of my soul. And I just went hard. Like, I just started dancing,
You really
and, like, I was like, I'm here. I'm with you guys. And I had never heard that song before. That was
Yeah.
the first time I had ever heard that song, was in that moment.
did.
And
Same.
that was the instant I fell in love with them. Because
No.
that's when I got it. That's when it made sense to me. Like,
That's fair.
hearing their songs live and hearing Dan Smith sing live is what really hooked me emotionally on to the words that he was saying. There's something about hearing it live and feeling the urgency in his voice when he sings certain lines that really connected me to the stories that he was telling.
Well said.
Thanks, fam. But yeah, so that's my story. I've always liked Bastille.
Yeah.
But that moment was when I fell in love with Bastille.
Well, they've had two albums, and I'm looking forward to their third, which is supposed to drop sometime this year. So that'll be cool. I'm excited. Impress me, Bastille. Impress me.
Good luck.
I was waiting for it. Yes.
Impress me. Good luck.
So we're gonna talk about their first album, Bad Blood, but
Bum, 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 bum.
I want to turn this discussion into a talk about all of this Bad Blood, which is the extended version of the album, because there's more songs to talk about, and some of my favorite songs come from the B-sides that they stuck on the album.
Oh, mine too.
Yeah. So we're just gonna everything we mention here is based off of the All This Bad Blood track listing, in case you are all curious as to where we're going with this. But to begin, how to begin? How should we begin?
Let's see. We've already talked about Pompeii, but yeah, Things We Lost in the Fire was initially my favorite song off the album before I heard the extended edition. Then some other songs supplanted it, but I still really love Things We Lost in the Fire because it's a beautiful destruction that is painted in this song, and I ended up listening to it a lot. Yeah, it was just a good song that I needed to hear for that moment. It's weird because, like, that song's always stuck out to me. And
that is weird.
It's this idea of, like, turning your back on things.
Okay.
That I think I really gravitate towards. Because I had moved all the way across the country to go to a school in a whole new state, and there was an element to my life of wanting to just sort of burn the bridges behind me. Not all of them, but there was this very strong feeling of just wanting, or just feeling like I was watching a life that I had lived sort of burned down to the ashes.
Wow.
And, like, I'd listen to that song a lot and just think about everything that was gone in my life. And I know that song is more sort of targeted to, like, a sort of romantic relationship, but for me, it always felt more of just like it's kind of like a song I used to take stock of my life and where I was. And
well, it's funny that you say that, because Dan Smith actually, like, the whole reason he wrote the song was that he was fascinated by the concept that you could create and accumulate these physical memories, like these things that stood for an important event. Like, you've got your pictures, you've got your gifts, you've whatever, and that in one incident, like a house fire, you could lose everything.
yeah,
Like, I feel like you could probably use it as a metaphor for a relationship, and maybe he wanted to have that be the case too. But I think that, I don't know, I feel like you've tapped into an important meaning of the song with your interpretation of it, or how you relate to it.
yeah, I guess you're right. 'Cause yeah, for me it was it was sort of like, I mean, my house didn't burn down or anything, but I jumped on a plane and 4 or 5 hours went by, and then all of a sudden, like, it was like a whole life filled with memories and childhood dreams and hope. Like, all of that was gone, and I was in a whole new place, and everything, yeah, like, it was this whole empty slate, and all that was left was sort of the, like, remnants of those previous memories that I had. Yeah, never really thought about it that way, but I guess that's why, like, it sticks out to me. And in general, like, just musically, that song, Dan Smith is his voice on that song is just really, Dan Smith's voice just in general is amazing.
I do love that about him, and
Like,
and by extension the sound that Bastille has. Like, his voice is so luscious.
yeah, there's a gravity to it. I think I said this in our Bad Sons episode, but yeah, Dan Smith, his voice has this just, like, weight. When he sings, you listen. Like, even when he's being quiet, whisper singing and things like that, like, even that you listen to, and there's so much, like, richness to his voice and depth to his voice that you have to listen to it.
I like that description. I like how you said it was a rich voice, because it almost is this rich velvety voice. Like, I'm eating a pudding.
Yeah, there's a chocolatey, like,
yeah,
you're eating a chocolate cake.
A rich, moist,
dark chocolate.
Yes. And it soars. Honestly, his voice soars, especially in songs where he really shows off his range, where, like, he goes from the really low to the really high, cuz honestly, the man's got range. I don't think he has Brendan Urie range, but the man has a range. And it's so impressive when you hear them actually show it off. Like, he's like an eagle flying, or perhaps an albatross, but we'll get to that later. What's your favorite thing about this album?
I think my favorite thing about this album is that you can't put Dan Smith's influences in a box. You know?
True.
Like, there's so much of this album that is taken from seemingly separate sort of cultural influences. Like, so much of Bastille is literary and historical, but there's also so much of it that is hip hop and current, and it's this wonderful marriage of all these different sounds that weave together and tell the story of Dan Smith. I think that's really cool that he's found his voice through all these different influences and takes them and weaves them together and mashes it all together to make something that is uniquely him.
True.
Because that's the thing, like, with Bastille, like, when it comes to bands in the alternative music scene and sort of his contemporaries and things like that, like, sometimes you can be like, oh, that band sounds like these bands or these bands. But with Bastille, for me, it's really hard to sort of say, oh, Bastille sounds like this band, or this band sounds like Bastille. Like, Bastille sounds like Bastille.
Yeah, I agree completely.
What's good about it, too, is that it's tempting to say that it's because of Dan Smith's voice, like the vocal quality to his voice, but that's not it. Because I think even when you strip out his voice, like, just the arrangements of the songs and
Mm-hmm.
the different influences in the songs are just so uniquely Bastille that
True.
I think even if Dan Smith lost his voice, it would still sound just as unique to him. And I think that's my favorite thing about this album. This album in particular too, because there are a lot of different sort of places that he goes with this album. Like, because you have songs like Pompeii and Things We Lost in the Fire, and Icarus, and they're these songs that feel very historical and have these almost tribal beats to them and things like that. But then you have songs like Of the Night, which is one of my favorite songs on the extended album, which is this like cool, just kind of banger party song. And you're like, what? Where did this come from? And then you have What Would You Do, which is a cover of a hip hop song. And
Fun facts: I didn't know it was a cover when I first heard it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cover of a City High song.
Yes.
I
found out later when you told me. And you were kind of upset. You're like, what do you mean? I didn't know Of the Night was a mashup either.
Yeah, I learned that later also.
Yeah.
Of the Night. Because when I heard it, I was like, yo, Bastille writing this great song.
Yeah, I heard Rhythm of the Night at a club somewhere, like the original, and I was like, whoa, they covered Bastille? And I was like, no. This is a 90s jam. It came way before their time.
I feel like I've talked a lot. What?
Well, I was curious as to your views, because everyone, I think, takes away something different from, I mean, not just any artist, but I mean, in the case of Bastille, there people fall in love with them for different reasons. So I was curious as to what you took away from this. Excuse me. What you took away from this album? What made it special?
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you, but I think for me, this was the first album where, how do I want to phrase this? This, I don't know. This was the first album that had words that matched the majesty of the sound for me. And I'm very much a person who gets into lyrics, and lyrics to me mean a lot. Ironic, considering one of my favorite songs is One Week by Bare Naked Ladies. But
one way so you look at me.
But like, the point that I'm trying to make about this album was this was the first album. Like, I have in front of me a Google Doc with various notes, and I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like seven songs reference literature or history or something like that, and they tell stories in a way that is compelling and does justice, or is complementary to the source material, which I think is fascinating. And to me, that's like, oh wow, I've never seen a band do this, or at least I've never seen a band do it this well. So that to me was like, oh yeah, Bad Blood, great album. All This Bad Blood, better album.
Can I say that, so in our episode on the 1975, I mentioned how if I were a band, I would be the 1975. When I listen to Bastille, I instantly think of you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Like,
aww,
Bastille is a band that feels like you.
Oh, thank you.
If you've ever, you're welcome, fam. But just for the listeners, if you've ever wanted to know what it's like to just be in Katarina's presence. It's kind of like listening to Bastille. What you hear in Bastille is a person that has a passion for culture, has a passion for life, has a passion for living, has a passion for the world around them. And that's what I think about when I talk with you. Like,
I'm gonna cry. That's beautiful.
it,
Oh no, it's getting too real. Oh no.
I'm
But
sorry, I'm getting so real, but I can't. I like. I'll be real. I honestly can't talk about Bastille without talking about you. That's how I compartmentalize you. How I sum you up in my head musically.
It's an honor to be lumped in with that category. Cause that's how I see Bastille as well. Like they're literary, they're cultural, they're a band that is alive, and I love that. Like, I don't know that. Oh, but no, I love this whole album. It's funny, you know. Side note: I didn't know Durban was a place. I thought it was like a play on urban, but apparently Durban is a town in South Africa.
Yeah.
So
that's new.
So I'm ignorant, but that's okay because I learned something today. Just as I learned recently, and I'm mad that I didn't get it until like really recently. You know the song "Poet"?
Yes.
You know it's inspired by the Shakespeare sonnet?
No.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more that one.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because
like, I love that song too.
Yeah. I know. I was so angry. Number one, I love that sonnet. I had to memorize it, but that's a whole other story. So like I knew Sonnet 18, but the song talks about how I'm assuming Dan wants to immortalize his lover forever in a song, because if you put someone you love in a song or in a piece of art, they never really die even when they're dead. Right? And that's the whole theme of the end of Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, and I was furious I didn't catch it. I was so angry.
You were so swept up in the song and just how adorable it is.
Yeah.
That you're like,
but like it's infuriating because like the ending but Sonnet 18 ends with, so long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. And I was like, that's one of my favorite ways to phrase what love means to an artist. Because what higher compliment can you get when you're in love with an artist than they put you in their work so that you can literally live forever in this way?
Yeah.
Even when your body is a corpse. Like,
I really like Poet.
Right? It's so good.
I'm a little embarrassed of how many times I just listened to that song.
Poet is a great song. Don't be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Let it fly.
Because I would just sit there and just be like, I hope one day somebody feels this way about me.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the beauty of that song.
You're just like,
it's what we all want.
And it more than just that, I also was like, I hope one day I feel this way about someone. Like,
yeah.
Like, somebody that, like, I just love so much that I want to write them down so they can just be in this world forever within my words. It's just...
That's beautiful.
It's so lovely.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And just pair that with Dan Smith's voice, which is just so, like, silky and smooth, as we've said.
It is. It's just so silky.
Like, how do you get more romantic and adorable than that song?
You don't.
You
You
don't.
No.
Like, you really don't. It's funny too, just like when you just listen to the like actual music, you take out the words and the lyrics and stuff. It's so simple and just like unassuming that like it there's something about it. It's like it just all works together.
Okay. Favorite songs. Are we doing top 3 or are we trying to narrow it down?
I'm gonna say top 3 because it's a long album.
It really is. It's so long. Okay, so top 3. I'm not gonna count Pompeii because I feel like Pompeii is in a league of its own.
Mm-hmm.
But top 3 would be hold on. Weight of Living Part 1 is one of my favorites because it references the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and it's so cool. Like you get the albatross around your neck as a metaphor for like, oh, you're carrying your problems and they're hurting you and they're like, let it go. But I also really like that poem, which is about a sailor cursed to wander the earth cause he kills an albatross, which is super bad luck, and basically everyone in his crew dies. So to me, I was like, holy, a band referenced this poem. I love it. This be all and end all. Icarus is another favorite because I'm Greek and I love Greek mythology, and also this song came out during my freshman year where I was sort of in an Icarian spiral myself, but that's all I'm gonna say about that. And my third favorite is Haunt because it's a beautiful, beautiful song, and there's something really intriguing to me about being able to haunt somebody, like to love somebody so much and to be such an imprint in their lives that even when like they're dead, they're haunted by you. I don't know, something. I also really like the general sound of that song.
Yeah,
it's so nice. And that's it for me. Your top 3.
Let's see. I'm gonna go with Things We Lost in the Fire because, like I said, I've always had this sort of inexplicable connection to it. I really love Poet. Because it's so cute. I won't talk anymore about it. And I'm gonna go with for my last one, Overjoyed.
Ooh, why?
Because it's so sad. Like, it just sounds sad. But,
yeah,
but he's just like, oh, I feel overjoyed. And the line in the chorus, he's just like, I hear you calling in the dead of night. It's another one of those haunting songs. Like, Dan Smith does haunting songs very well.
He really does.
And it's weird. And I've always found it interesting the way he sort of brought these two themes of just like feeling overjoyed but also just like haunted and scared, like the marriage between those two themes on that song have always been really compelling to me. But yeah, I will go with Things We Lost in the Fire, Poet, and Overjoyed. We shall move our discussion to Wild World, which came out September 9th, 2016, and has the best song in the world, Send Them Off, on it.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Good Grief.
No, Send Them Off is the best song. Like, I know we do our favorite songs at the end, but I'm already like, Send Them Off. Send Them Off. Send Them Off. Everything about that song is perfect. Nobody can convince me otherwise. I love that song so much. everything about it from the very beginning, when it starts out with the movie sample, and the guy's just like, it's a slight on my honor, so therefore he deserved it. Like, it's just so cool. Everything about that song is cool. And I love this sort of, I love the literary reference to Othello.
Othello meets the Exorcist, he said.
Yeah, I love that reference. I love that sort of twisting of the original source material. And yeah, this is a major sort of power song for me. Like I said, I heard it for the first time at that show when I went from 0 to 100 in a second, and ever since then, that is the song I listen to when I am feeling my lowest and need to bring something out of me that I didn't know that I had. Like, that is that song for me. It's the resilience song for me. It's the charge through, keep going, don't stop song for me. Yeah, you can't listen to that song and not be hype. I refuse to believe that you can just listen to that song and be like, yeah, I'm not feeling motivated to do anything. Like, at the very least, you're going to be motivated to dance or scream or fist pump in the air. You're going to want to do something. So yes, that song's perfect. And the horns.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, best part.
Praise be.
Fun fact, did you know that the opening sample is from an Italian sci-fi movie?
I did know that, because I looked it up after I heard the song. Because I was like, what is this?
Right?
What
it's
is
so
happening?
weird.
It's so weird.
Another great thing about this band is that they just pull out the weirdest stuff to sample. Like, I love it. It's so delightfully obscure.
Yeah. And again, it like speaks to Dan Smith's hip hop influences. Hip hop is sampling, like the art of sampling, and he incorporates that into his music, which is also blending elements of just like rock and things like that. And so
true,
for him to do that so well and just without regard to any sort of rules of genre or style or aesthetic, he just does whatever he wants in that song and just puts it all in there and ends up creating this banger of a track. Like, it's such a banger.
What a great song to open with too on a set.
Yeah, like, perfect. You can't get any better than that. Like, cause like, how are you gonna be an audience member and listen to that and not be like, oh, this is great? Especially when you've got like thousands of other people around you screaming along to it. Like, the energy it creates is just like infectious to like levels that would make the CDC scream. Like, you know?
I do. This album inspires a lot of thoughts. I love how many different weird things they sample on this album. I loved that Good Grief sampled Weird Science.
Yeah, that was
easily one of the funniest movies of the 80s. I love the juxtaposition between positive words and depressing tones. Like on An Act of Kindness. To me, when I first heard An Act of Kindness, I was like, this song does not inspire me to be happy in the slightest. Like, in a way, when I first heard it, and, you know, the chorus is, and now it follows me everywhere, and it's repeated, and at first it inspired this sense of paranoia in me. But, if you look at the lyrics, like, if you sit down and you read them, it's one of the most positive songs on the album. Because it's about how a small act of kindness can change a person's day, or even a person's year, or a person's life. And that act of kindness can follow you But I think in a way the paranoia or the frantic energy of it towards the chorus is interesting because Smith said something along the lines of like you can feel kind of worthy or unworthy of that. So that's probably why the song is so ambiguous in a way. I don't know. I like how weird it is because it's like I can't pinpoint it. I have a hard time pinpointing a lot of things on this album. I don't know. Did Winter of Our Youth make you cry?
No.
No. Oh.
But yeah, I don't know.
It made me sad. I was like, ugh. I don't want to think about because like that's such an awful. You think about. I'm getting older, guys. I'm feeling the cold in my bones. I know when storms are coming. You know. I don't like it. Getting old scares me. And you don't like to think of being in the winter of your years until you're like, in your 80s or your 90s, whatever. But it's an interesting concept to think of being in the winter of your youth. Like your youth is actually coming to an end and everything else happens after that. Because youth doesn't necessarily mean your childhood is ending. Youth just means your youth is ending. And that I'm paranoid. It's not even about like for me losing like beauty or energy because look, I'm a lazy child. I don't know. It's just a sort of scary thing to know that the progression of time is constant. There is no stopping. And like when you are young, like you always feel I've got time. Except you don't. If I talk about this anymore, I'm gonna get paranoid. I will say that yet again, it samples some weird, obscure social film. I love it when songs do that when they sample some weird stuff. It's from a social guidance film called Act Your Age. You gotta wonder what these kids were learning. And I love the fact that Dan says that they've only played it live twice because it is difficult and they're lazy.
That's real.
Same.
That's real.
Did you know that Four Walls was about the murderer from In Cold Blood?
I didn't know that until today. But I do like that song. Morbid as that origin story is.
Yeah.
But it is it's another one of those like sort of haunting and like creepy songs. It always unsettled me for some reason, but I couldn't really pinpoint why. And so learning that it's about a murderer is validating, and it's like, oh, okay, I should have been unsettled. That is accurate.
Yeah. For those of you who are unaware of what In Cold Blood is, it is a true crime novel written by Truman Capote about a 1959 quadruple homicide. And Perry Smith is one of the people who were convicted and executed for this.
So basically,
so the song is
not fun.
No.
Snakes is good.
Yes.
I like Snakes a lot.
I like the rhythm and the cadence in Snakes.
Yeah.
There's something very intriguing about how he does his rhymes in the chorus of Snakes.
There's something about Snakes that's it almost sounds like it's got an older sensibility to it. Almost like I'm tempted to say like a Motown song or something.
That'd be fair considering his parents were influenced by the melodic music of that time. So, who knows?
Yeah. And I love that Um, Dan Smith has said about this song that it's about going out and getting drunk on a Friday night. I love that. Seems to stand for me. It just seems fun but also like crazy in an unsettling way. As is kind of par for the course on a drunken Friday night. So
true. I also like the overall sentiment of the song of like being so sick to death of all the shit you see on the news that you're just like, I'm gonna get wasted. And when I wake up from this alcohol-induced coma, y'all better sort it out. All of your garbage. You hear me? A Heineken. And like,
y'all figure this out, cause I'm not gonna be able to in about 2 hours.
Yeah, the world is complicated, and I'm too drunk for this. Goodbye. Okay. So, I went first last time, so what are your favorite songs?
Send them off. In case that wasn't obvious from this entire episode, send them off. Send them off. Send them off. Next, I guess, is send them off. I did it. But honestly, like that, send them off is amazing. Lethargy is another favorite. I really like Lethargy. And yeah, I think Snakes. I think those were the ones.
Nice.
Let's send them off, Lethargy and Snakes. It's a good mix between like pump up, have fun, be a little
Pump
sad.
Yeah.
Very, very symbolic of a wild world.
Yeah. I love that about this album. You can basically break it down into like two halves of the sort of optimistic, pumped up side, and then the we're just here to talk about depression side. The world is screwed. Get used to it. Okay, for my favorites, I'm gonna say Good Grief. I really like that song. I think it's a bop. I love dancing to that song. It does something that I think we talked about last episode with Bad Sons, about how it's a song that teeters on the edge of portraying something sad, but at the same time is trying to boost your energy to get out of the sadness anyway. Like he said, it was a song about the ups and downs of life. Like it's about all the highs and the lows that you experience in loss. So to me, that's, I don't know, I like it. I like the energy of it. And again, it's a bop. And then I'm gonna have to say Winter of Our Youth. And you know what? I think this is a first. We're gonna overlap. Send them off.
It's definitely not a first.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Definitely not a first.
No.
Send them off is perfect, and that's the correct answer.
I love it.
Alright, that wraps up our Bastille episode.
Woohoo!
We did it.
That
was dope. Thank you for listening to our 6th episode of Rhapsody and Reverie. We hope you enjoyed listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You can find us at Rhapsody Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Same handle for both. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean. You can listen to us on all those sites. Leave us a rating and review on all those sites. Give us
Please
feedback.
do that.
Yeah, we really want to know what we are doing that you like and what we're doing that maybe you wish we would change. Just give us some sort of feedback. Give us a sign. Talk to us. We like talking. I mean, we started a podcast, so we obviously like talking.
Yeah, you can't shut us up once we get going. So you might as well tell us what you'd rather hear come out of our mouths.
Yeah,
You can't stop it.
Make life better for you.
Yes.
But yeah, also keep your eyes on our website for announcements of new interesting stuff. But yeah, next week, shall we give them a hint for our next week's episode?
We shall. Okay, so next week's band shares a name with a week-long festival that is held annually in the city of Pamplona, Spain.
Oh, I know. I didn't actually look, and I was like gonna try and see if I could guess it from the hint. I got
and
it.
You did.
I got it.
Yeah, you did. I feel like a few of you would probably get it. And of course, tune in to our Twitter and our Facebook on Wednesdays because it's Wednesday Guest Day. # Wednesday Guest Day. And if you guess it,
we are going to shout you out on the podcast.
That, and you get to live your life knowing that you contributed to society.
Pride of a job well done. But yeah, so tune in next week to find out who we're doing and who we're... Oh. It's one of those
Will Adrienne and Esteban finally consummate their love? Will Rodrigo finally kill Esteban?
It's one of those episodes.